6:01 p.m. So I'm going to officially call to order this special meeting of the Council of the City of Lancaster. We have a little housekeeping to do, but first, as you are willing and able, if you would join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. Oh, okay. We'll have Mr. Harris call the roll of members, and then we'll get into it. Yes, Mr. President. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Roy.
Here.
Ms. Baker.
Here.
Mr. Colexty.
Here.
Ms. Craddick.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Here. Here.
He's working on getting it turned on right now.
Oh, okay. That's what's happening. Okay. Thank you for bearing with everyone.
Different angle. Okay.
Oh, look at that. That is beautiful. Thank you, y'all. Mr. Harris, are we otherwise ready to proceed?
We are, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm your host, City Council President Ismail Smith-Waddell. Couple quick housekeeping items. First and foremost, now is a beautiful opportunity to silence your cell phones. Secondly, this is, as all our other meetings of council are, open to the public, and it is being live streamed by the fabulous Ms. Strazo over there, just so we are all aware that you are, in fact, being recorded for the public record. Just like to let everybody know that beforehand. This meeting is somewhat unusual, and I'll address this for every person who comes to the podium this evening. But of course, we are here for the purpose of conducting brief interviews for applicants to fill the unexpired term of Councilor Xavier Garcia Molina. So when your name is called, I would ask that you come to the podium. Begin with your name and your address. I will ask you to confirm that you meet all the legal requirements to take a seat on City Council, and then you may take up to 3 minutes for an opening statement. After that, councilors will be able to ask you questions, and you will be able to respond. I recommend brevity on both fronts. We'll be interviewing 9 people this evening, and after a certain point, not to give anyone short shrift, but just to ensure that we're not here until 9 or 10 p.m., I will endeavor to move us along. Does everybody understand? Make sense? Members of the press, do you have any special needs before we get going?
The other candidates be able to hear each other during the segregating the candidates and bringing one to the
No, the meeting is, and in fact, because it is a meeting of council, where we will be questioning and possibly discussing an item on which we will later vote. It must be open to the public. And so candidates must be able to be a part of the room, as they are until one of them is selected a member of the public. Okay. With that, I'm sorry, did I? Okay, great. With that, we will begin a little early. I think our first slot was scheduled for 6:10. Mr. Ahmed. Councilors, there is no special order in which you may or must ask questions. So simply ask to be recognized and I will recognize you. Sir, please begin with your name and address.
Ahmed, 505 North Lime Street, apartment 1.
Thank you. Sir, are you a resident of the city of Lancaster and have you been for the past year?
Yes.
Are you over the age of 18?
Yes.
Excellent. Do you currently hold any office that would otherwise prevent you from occupying a seat on city council?
No.
Excellent. You may take up to 3 minutes for an opening statement if you'd like.
Well, first off, I want to thank all of you on council, honorable council members. This is truly an honor to be considered and to have your time this evening. I also want to take a moment to really honor the work of Councilor Garcia Molina, and how he really embodied what a city council member should do by being available and always being present, especially when times are hard. So I just wanted to take a moment and thank Councilor Garcia Molina, and he will truly be missed. This year marks 25 years. 25 years as a Lancastrian. My family arrived to the 300 block of West Grant Street in late 1997. I quickly became, a lover of Lancaster, going to the market, going to Fulton Elementary School, where Miss Ross really started that educational component, and formally after that, going to Ross Elementary School, where Miss Chavez taught me the love of language. Being born in a refugee camp, in a latrine, as somebody who had malaria and almost died of malnutrition, being afforded the pursuit of happiness here in Lancaster City is what motivates me in my life's work towards the advancement of Lancaster and its commitment of welcoming. That is what led me to be a volunteer community and grassroots organizer here in the city. I worked closely and actively with the refugee community, making sure that not only do they know that their government is accessible and transparent, but being a role model to see that they too can be leaders. No matter where they come from and no matter how humbly their beginnings started, Lancaster will remain a place of welcoming. I also currently serve on the advisory commission, the Advisory Council for the Human Relations Commission of Lancaster, where we promote anti-discrimination and we educate our community on how to proceed if they were indeed, unfortunately, felt like they were discriminated against. Being a refugee leader, has really been very fruitful, especially being able to make change in new Lancastrians' lives. As a proud graduate of the Neighborhood Leaders Academy, I was able to present to you guys my final project where we created these great welcoming packets that got right into the hands of new Lancastrians. So not only did they have direct resources, they also had city maps, KN95 masks, and lists of where to go and who to call, from everything if your heat were to go out, to your plumbing, to where to get a great cup of coffee. And that's something that we were very proud of in our community. And neighborhood engagement is something that has been such a great part of this current city's administration. Being a part of Lancaster's designation of a welcoming city and presenting to you guys for the first time in 2019 when we received that designation, the council made a promise that we would keep government accessible, that we would remain transparent, and that new Americans and new Lancastrians will be able to also thrive in our community. And I want to thank you guys for upholding that promise and working with me and other leaders. So some of my goals are to continue the shared goals and the shared vision that we all have, whether it be the ARPA dollars that we just got from the American Rescue Plan and how you guys were able to make historical commitments to affordable housing. That was really something that I really want to continue with. And just the neighborhood engagement, commitment to welcoming and transparent and accessible government is how I plan to fill this seat if I do have the honor. And if not, I will continue to work alongside each of you and show up every day when it is needed.
Thank you. Members of council,
Mr. President?
please.
Mr. Ahmed, thank you for being here this evening. In what ways do you believe that city council members have the greatest impact on city residents?
I think, and thank you for your question, Councilor Baike. I think that we have the greatest ability to be present with our residents and be accessible, whether it's staying late after a meeting, whether it's, via social media, making yourself available, or even just in the community. That's something that I've always prided myself on, is being available in the community. And I think somebody who is going to hold this seat needs to have an understanding of city government, needs to have an understanding of our city goals, and needs to make the time and availability. And that's beyond just the meetings that are held on Tuesday evenings and on Mondays. We need to do this every day. And, this is my life's work. It's something that I've always done, and something that I continue to plan on doing. So just being available and also being a life-living example to other boys and girls here in the city that they too could be leaders.
Mr. President, okay, thank you. Mr. Ahmed, what do you believe is the value of diversity in our city?
I believe that Lancaster's revitalization and its economic success is based in our diversity. If we were not so welcoming and we were not a champion and a welcoming city, we would be seeing similar situations that are going across the state of Pennsylvania, where we are seeing failing towns and small cities with abandoned homes and shuttered doors. I believe that Lancaster's revitalization and our economic success plays a great part into our newest Americans and our newest neighbors and our diversity. But also, we have such a vibrant community where those are there for each other in every quadrant of the city, where we see folks of all races, of all ethnicities, of all sexual orientations, really there for each other. Some of the demonstrations after the George Floyd riots after the George Floyd death, was a great example of how community members from every walk of life, from every religious group, came together and were on the front lines. Also, during our fight against COVID-19, we were able to see new Americans, African Americans, Caucasian Americans, everybody really coming together to really make sure that the city remains safe. So I think diversity is really what plays a great part. And quickly, I had the honor of going to Las Vegas and, representing Lancaster at the National Immigrant Integration Conference this past October. And, there were so many community organizers, so many academics, professors, legal scholars there. And I was very warmly unsurprised that how many of them came up to me asking how too they could replicate what we have here in Lancaster in their own cities, in their own nonprofits, and how our commitment to welcoming has really put us on the catalyst as an example of a thriving small city. So I think we really owe it to our diversity and our commitment to inclusion.
Thank you.
Mr. Ahmed, what has been your greatest challenge in Lancaster City?
I would say, just even thinking back on this being my 25-year anniversary in the city, my family would not afford to live on the 300 block of West Grand Street today. And so affordable housing, I think, is our greatest challenge, and making sure that this city remains affordable for all of us. And when I say all of us, I really mean all of us. And making sure that although we are revitalizing, although we are seeing great economic improvements, making sure that we remember that there are some of us who grew up in the city and were born in the city who may not be able to afford it if we do not continue to make the strides we're making towards affordable housing. So right now, I do think it's fair to say that we are in a housing crisis, and there's plenty of ways that we could mitigate that as council, but we cannot keep welcoming new neighbors if we don't even have places for them to stay. So I think that's been one of the biggest challenges, and I think we're all aware of those challenges, and I think we're moving in the right direction towards mitigating them.
Thank you.
Mr. President? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. As far as a council body, what are some areas that you see as opportunities that council can advance some of the work that you're mentioning around affordable housing and making the city more welcoming?
Okay, I think that there's definitely some more tools that we could be doing towards, mitigating of the flipping of houses in the city. Also, continuing the work that we're doing and taking investment dollars that we're receiving, whether they're through ARPA or through state funds, and really putting them towards, education, safe education. I really appreciated the city's commitment to mitigating the lead in homes. So there's ways that we could do it, but we have to do it in every quadrant of the city. And we have to make sure that that economic vibrance that we're seeing in the downtown area gets out into the southeast, gets out into the northwest, and gets into some of those places where people may be feeling like they're disenfranchised. We do have to realize that, we do have some folks in our city who feel disenfranchised that time and feel like they don't have a seat at the table. So as a council member, I would try to speak for all of the city and represent all of the city. As somebody who's lived in every quadrant of the city and knows some of the struggles, I just think that we have to expand the things that we are already doing and keep in mind those who may be in less fortunate positions than we are, and making sure that we continue to make this city affordable for everybody and make sure that it's safe for everybody, and that we continue our commitment to welcoming new Lancastrians.
Mr. Ahmed, what is your greatest love for city?
What was that?
What is your greatest love for Lancaster City?
My greatest love for Lancaster is its welcoming spirit. As somebody who works in the hospitality and tourism industry, I understand how not only is welcoming a part of who we are, but it's a part of the reason why we have built this great city. Welcoming folks and telling them we're the best place to get something to eat, or having them shop at our thriving small businesses, that has been the greatest joy, both on the community organizing side of things and making sure that refugees and new Americans have a welcoming experience here in the city, but also understanding that our thriving economic sector, when regards to our service industry and our food and beverage, that's really my love, is going out to eat with my girlfriend, and enjoying the experience that many that our tourists are enjoying, and that's really it. Seeing folks galvanize towards helping new neighbors, seeing people donating items when they find out that we have a new Lancastrian on the block. That love of having each other's back, and that smiling face of welcome is my greatest love of the city, and that's what really motivates me in my life's work, which is the advancement of Lancaster.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Diaz, you will be the last question for Mr. Ahmed. Please proceed. Please proceed.
We have a crisis with homelessness, and it has basically tripled. Can you tell me what solution you have for the city to resolve this?
Well, I definitely think that I would agree to your assessment of the homeless issue that we have in the city. But I think our health and human services aspect, and viewing these people as people who may need mental health or may have social disorders, and we want to make sure that that's okay, and we want to give resources and support to the nonprofits who sometimes take the bear of the issue, and we have to stop viewing it as a criminal problem. Homelessness is not, or houselessness is not a criminal problem. Sometimes we as society may have not held up our end of the bargain to these individuals. So I think we have a commitment to our less fortunate Lancastrians who are considered homeless, and I think that we really have to view it from a community health plan, and work with our great police force to try to mitigate some of the the unfortunate instances where our homeless may feel that they are, excluded or, uninvited from certain areas. And as we see revitalization and we continue to improve the downtown area, we need to make sure that we keep our homeless population in mind and that the spaces that we are creating are still inviting to them as they once were before. So I definitely think that viewing it from a health and a community, the burden's on us. We owe it to these people. And I really think once we start viewing and shifting the lens and the stigma against homelessness here in the city, I think we're already making great strides to it, but I would agree with your assessment that there's definitely work that we could be doing.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Ahmed. You've comported yourself well, and we thank you for taking the time to present yourself to council. Thank you, council. You may take this moment to step out, or you can stay for any number of the rest of the interviews, and we will be in touch with next steps. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. And I guarantee whether I have the affordability to be on the seat or not, the work does not stop, and I will continue to work with each of you and continue to show up when needed. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Ricardo Almodovar.
Good evening.
Good evening. Please begin with your name and address.
Yes, my name is Ricardo Almodovar. I live at 521 Green Street, Lancaster.
Thank you so much. And, have you been a resident of the city of Lancaster for 1 year?
More than that, yes.
Excellent. And you are over the age of 18?
Yes.
Do you hold any office which would preclude you from holding a seat on city council?
I do not.
Excellent. You have 3 minutes for an opening statement, sir.
Great. Well, I want to start off with thanking each and every one of you for this opportunity. For those of you that don't know me, and including folks on live, my name is Ricardo Almodovar, and I am a lifelong Pennsylvanian. I was born and raised here in Lancaster, and my background is community organizing, civic engagement, and public policy work. My passion is working in marginalized communities in particular, and really bringing them to the forefront of our work. When it comes to city, state, and federal government, we have a long way to go in order to create change for the long term. And I am passionate about working in low-income communities, working in LGBTQ+ communities, communities of color, and really making sure that our work includes them in the conversation. Because anything about them, without them, really isn't for them. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you. Councilors.
Mr. President.
Councilor Bakay.
Thank you. Hello. How would you seek feedback from residents on proposed legislation?
Feedback. So there's a plethora of ways we can seek feedback. The first one that comes to mind is hosting a town hall or an event that brings the public together, where folks can just ask questions, and a place where it can be easily accessible, where we can have it in not just English, but potentially in other languages as well. I know the city of Lancaster has, for the first time, a language access coordinator, and so I would work diligently with the Office of Community Engagement, along with CIDA, to make sure that we're accessible when it comes to something like this. In addition, another thing that we can work on to receive feedback from community members is a survey, a simple survey asking folks what their thoughts are on city government, on public works, and to gain feedback not just from city members, but then also our partners. That survey could be created by our partners, some local nonprofits, city government officials, and distribute that accordingly, and then analyze those results. So that way, not only do we have anecdotal aspect of community engagement, but we also have data and analytics when it comes to this work. So it comes twofold, and those are just two of the ideas that comes to mind right now.
Mr. President? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Almodovar. You have an extensive background and experience in community organizing. How do you feel that's helped you be prepared to take on the role as a counselor?
I know a lot of people, a lot of people. So as I mentioned, I'm from Lancaster City, born and raised. So not only do I have connections here with the many nonprofits I've worked with, but also with the many folks that I've met throughout my career. I previously worked for CASA, Pennsylvania, working in the Latino and immigrant community. I previously worked for the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center, and they provide independent and credible analysis on public policy in the state budget, right? And so all of these folks have their own expertise, their own specialization, and with my vast network, I'm able to gain different perspectives and different ideas, and it helps me be the person I am today. So community organizing has definitely impacted my work, and it has helped me make so many connections to work on making long-term change. And what's evidence of that, I've worked with the city of Allentown, for instance, and I lived in Allentown for about 3 years after college. And I worked with the Bradbury Sullivan LGBT Center, and we successfully banned gay conversion therapy in the third largest city in the state. And so that's an accomplishment that I'm proud of, and community organizing has been key to my success.
And if I can just quickly follow up, speaking to these specific groups, what are some of the challenges that you would like to look forward to solving as a city councilor?
Well, that's twofold, or rather two ideas come to mind right now. Number one, and probably most urgent, and Ahmed mentioned it earlier, is housing, providing affordable housing. And so there are different ways to combat that, which includes inclusionary zoning policies, which could include community outreach, community engagement, having town halls and conversation, bringing in those folks that are impacted by some of those policies. I used to work for Tenfold. I worked for them for 3 years while I was in college at the Transitional Living Center. So I have direct experience with working with folks that are really struggling to make ends meet. And in addition, I've felt some of these impacts myself. I come from humble beginnings. My family moved here from Puerto Rico, and we bounced from house to apartment, and in fact, we lived at the Transitional Living Center my first year of life. And so who knows where my family would have been were it not for social services and the help that Lancaster provides. So that's one aspect, is housing is the most urgent. Number two, which is much more long-term, is environmental sustainability. I just finished, well, it was supposed to be a year-long program, but it ended up being 2 with COVID. I worked with the Lancaster Clean Water Partners and Penn State, and just finished their inaugural Watershed Leadership Academy. And I learned a ton about what Lancaster is doing for clean water issues. So we toured around different facilities, water treatment facilities. We learned about the rain gardens and riparian buffers and green roofs. And we need to be much more intentional with more long-term work when it comes to sustainability, environmental sustainability, and environmental justice. There is no plan B, so our future depends on the work that we do now.
Mr. President. Mr. Almodovar, at this time, the person filling this position would become the chair of the Public Works Committee. How do you feel your skills or background would serve you in that position?
I touched on it just now, working with the Lancaster Clean Water Partners and meeting some of these folks and Previously, I also worked for the Lancaster City Alliance briefly, part-time, and I worked directly with them. And our goal was to, or rather my position, I was the Neighborhood Enhancement Projects Coordinator briefly. And I worked with neighbors and with businesses and even with the Department of Works to help adopt the block, to help help folks adopt trash receptacles and adopt trees, and work with community engagement in that aspect. So what would be most impactful in my experience would be my vast network and some of the knowledge that I've learned through some of the initiatives that I've been involved with.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
This question would be related to if the community came to you and said, please do not vote for this particular ordinance or policy, would you vote according to what they requested, or would you vote according to the administration?
I would definitely choose the people. I think city council members represent the Lancaster City's residents. And so if that's what the people decide, then that's what or that's what city council members should support.
Thank you, Mr. President. And what interests you most about this position?
So a couple things. So as I mentioned, I'm a lifelong Lancastrian, born and raised here. So that would be number one. And then also, I want to give back to a community where I was born, that helped raise me, and that really made me who I am today. I love Lancaster first and foremost because of its people. And because we're doing big things here in the Red Rose City, and I want to be a part of that change. I want to be able to leave my mark, but then I also want to inspire others to do the same.
Thank you.
Councilors, any other questions? Oh,
Yes,
Go for it.
I have one more question. And Mr. Almodovar, why do you believe you would be the best choice for this appointment?
I would be the best candidate because I have history here in Lancaster. I have strong roots here in Lancaster. And I am confident that given my skills and abilities and my vast network, I'll be an asset to the city of Lancaster. And I know that I would work diligently with the rest of you here on City Council. And I would confer with residents as well to make sure that we're making the most impact in Lancaster and that we're able to work to support those most on the margins. As I mentioned, we need to support those that are on the margins in order for us to really create change for the long term.
Thank you.
Mr. Almodovar, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to come and represent yourself here. We really appreciate it. Thank you, of course, members of council, and we'll be in touch with next steps. You're welcome to stay, and you are welcome to go. Any last words?
Great. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I really hope that you consider me for the Lancaster City Council position. I know with the connections I have in Lancaster, being on the board of the Lancaster LGBTQ+ Coalition, part of Lancaster Pride, the Keystone Business Alliance, but also being part of the Governor's Advisory Commission on LGBT Affairs, I know that our community stands in solidarity with each other, and that with all of these different connections and all of these different organizations doing all of these amazing things, that I am confident I'm able to bring that to the table for the city of Lancaster, and that we can create change in Lancaster and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Kuhn.
Good evening.
Good evening. Begin with your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Jeff Kuhn. I live at 457 New Dorwart Street, 1603.
Thank you. Are you 18 years of age, sir?
Yes, sir.
Have you been a resident of the city of Lancaster for at least 1 year prior to today?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. And do you hold any office which would preclude you from taking a seat on city council?
I do not.
Excellent. You may take up to 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, council members, for allowing me the opportunity to be here tonight. I am here with two things front of mind for me. The first is I believe public service involves a great deal of humility in being able to admit what you don't know when you don't know it, and being brave enough to say, I don't know, let me get back to you. And I think the most important part of what I just said is service. I believe very strongly that things actually happen that are impactful in terms of changing hearts and minds and making differences in people's lives, not in the federal level or the state level, but quite frankly, right here. And it is in that spirit that I appear before you tonight. I want to share a quick anecdote. I was part of the 2020 Neighborhood Leadership Academy, and I had a big project planned. I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could advocate for getting my neighborhood to care more about just cleaning up trash on the street? And after being a part of the academy, what I realized is I hadn't done a single bit of asking neighbors, talking to people. It was very self-centered. And what I ended up taking away from my experience is that I was going to be much more passionate about facilitating and being a conduit for other folks who maybe had a more tied into the community idea than I did. And that sense of humility and wanting to listen and learn what I don't know and be a part of this incredible community is why I'm here tonight. So thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Councilors.
Council President.
Councilor
Thank you.
Baker.
Mr. Kuhn, thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
What do you believe is the most significant challenge facing the city of Lancaster?
I think this is an incredibly diverse group of people. It's an incredibly diverse city and community. But I think there's a lot of disconnect between the communities, whether they be, ethnic or racial or, sexual orientation. And I think one of the things that makes us a special city is that diversity, but what can make us a truly world-class city is being able to bring those diverse groups together in a meaningful and sustainable way to create a city that is as welcoming and is as welcoming as I think we all want it to be and believe it to be. That takes a lot of failing. It takes a lot of listening to people who maybe don't think or look like you. And there's a lot of, I think, inherent scariness in that. And I think one of the things that I'm most interested in is moving past the fear that involves talking to people who may not look or sound like me. I've only lived in Lancaster for just over 4 years, but in that short time, moving here has been the greatest move professionally and personally I've ever done. And if I can be any part of bringing these communities of folks together in a way that creates a bigger, better, more inclusive city, I'm here for that.
Mr. President? As far as bringing community together, why city council? Why do you feel that this is going to be the role that allows you to do that, and what specific aspects of it will empower you to do so?
It's a really good question. Thank you. I think, frankly, I feel like city council is a conduit. It allows the folks in a neighborhood or a community to say, you have a voice. You have the ability to speak to someone who lives literally right next door to you, who has, through speaking to you, the chance to make a change that affects your life directly. So is there a way to become a neighborhood advocate without being a part of city council? Of course there is, and it's what I strive to do on a daily basis. But I think effectuating real change or making a person who has felt voiceless or silenced, even worse, for years, letting them know that the person who literally lives on the other side of that wall from them can actually bring their concerns to a body of folks who can actually do something for them. That's for me why I think city council.
Great, thanks. And if I can just follow up, what are some of those concerns that you've heard from the community that you would like to address?
Homelessness, the lack of access to public services. My neighbors directly to my right, English is very definitely their second language, and I know that they're living constantly with the sense of we are not a part of this society. And we've talked about it and making sure that these folks know that we welcome everyone, that we want everyone to feel a part of this community. And so communication, so asking questions, what do you need? How can I help get that for you? Whether that means leaving a door knocker on in Spanish because our languages don't necessarily, connect, there are ways to communicate and connect with folks who may not speak the same language.
Mr. Kuhn, what is your greatest love for Lancaster City?
If I have to pick one, I would say very much that it is a small town with great history, but it feels like a big city in that we have some of the greatest restaurants I've ever eaten in my life. We have a fantastic art scene. We have a vibrant, although I wish it was a little more vibrant, nightlife. We have people who are making this a destination, not just for business, but for pleasure, for tourism. It is definitely a city that feels on the verge of true greatness while still being already great. I love the people as well. I mean, in moving here 4 years ago, I quickly realized that this was one of the most welcoming and generous of spirit communities of people that I've ever been in. And it was, part of that initially made me want to do anything that I could to be a better part of this community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for being here, Mr. Kuhn. And why do you believe you would be the best choice for this appointment?
Can I be honest? I don't know that I would be the best choice. I think I would be a very good choice because, frankly, despite the fact that I don't have 25 years of living in Lancaster, I have adopted it as much as anybody can as my home city. I don't want to leave here, and it's not a step to someplace else. I think I have an outsider's perspective and an ability and frankly, eagerness to learn more about this community of folks. So am I the one with the most, the longest history? No. I mean, I think Mr. Almodovar and Mr. Ahmed clearly surpassed me on that, and I'm sure there are many others. But what I think I bring is an eagerness to continue. I like to consider myself a lifelong learner, and I've got enough experience with other facets of life that I feel like I can bring a unique and perhaps different perspective than other folks.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions, members of council?
Yes, I have one more
Go
question.
for it.
Please, Mr. Kuhn, describe your neighborhood and what do you think are the biggest concerns or priorities of your neighbors?
I live on the 400 block of New Dorwart Street. It's incredibly diverse. We bought our house there just over 2 years ago. And I think honestly, some of the biggest challenges that folks have on my block is we've got some houses that are in disrepair, some that, we had a tree just fall on one 3-4 weeks ago. And I don't know that the resources are there personally to take care of the things that need to be taken care of on a daily basis, to just have people living in houses that they feel proud of. I love my neighbors. They're really, I think, finding more ways for all of us on the entire block to just be with each other. I think generally there's a sense of that person across the street doesn't necessarily look like me. And so therefore, we all have certain assumptions about what that means. And I think, frankly, one of the things that I have tasked myself with is just saying hello more often. Just reaching out to wave to somebody across the street, because that is a simple human connection. And if we're just talking sort of microcosmically about my block, that's what I wish we all would engage more in. Because the moment that you recognize someone's fellow humanity, they're a little less scary than they were 5 minutes ago, because you realize they put their pants on or pull their skirt up or whatever, the same way that you do every morning.
Thank you.
Members of council, anything else? Okay, Mr. Kuhn, thank you so much for taking the time and coming and representing yourself to us. It was lovely to have you. We'll be in touch with next steps. You'll get an email. Do you have any closing words?
I don't. I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, but I think more importantly, I appreciate the work that you all do on a daily basis to make this a city that personally I've never been prouder to live and be a part of. And so if there is a role for me to play in that, whether it's as a city council member or not, please know how much I appreciate each of you and the work that you do on a daily basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Pamela Craddick. Good evening. Begin with your name and address, please.
My name is Pamela Craddick Lilith. I live at 22 North Pine Street.
Thank you. Real quick, is that hyphenated just so I can make sure my records are correct?
No, it's not hyphenated.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Are you over the age of 18?
Yes, I believe I am.
Have you been a resident of the city of Lancaster for at least 1 year from today?
Yes.
Excellent. And do you hold any office which would preclude you from taking a seat on city council?
No, I do not.
All right, you may have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Okay. Good evening, honorable members of City Council and my Lancaster community. I have had a lifelong interest in politics, and I have been a political activist for decades. I believe I can offer a unique perspective to city government. I am a registered nurse, a certified nurse midwife, and a holistic women's health care practitioner. We can extrapolate that factors that contribute to an individual's health also contribute to the health of a community. Social, economic, mental, emotional, employment, spiritual, and physical conditions all interplay and affect the health of an individual as well as a community. I've worked for many years to address disparities in healthcare and in my community. Locally, I've served on the board of Lighthouse Vocational Services and as a volunteer for Domestic Violence Services of Lancaster. I was chosen to be an international delegate for women's health care by the People to People Ambassador program at serving in China. I began working in Haiti in 2010 after the devastating earthquake. I was one of 7 healthcare providers that set up a clinic in the slums of Port-au-Prince to treat the sick, the injured, and the traumatized. I've made several trips to Haiti since then to teach budding healthcare providers, serving as a classroom teacher, a clinical supervisor, and staffing hospitals and rural mobile clinics. While in Haiti, another healthcare provider and I launched a program to educate traditional birth attendants in basic health and midwifery skills and emergency management of pregnancy in the rural areas of Haiti. I have been engaged as a public speaker, bringing awareness to childhood sexual abuse and sexual assault in adults. For several years, I was a regular speaker on women's health care at Millersville University. I've also spoken at Franklin and Marshall College, Johns Hopkins University, and Lancaster YWCA, as well as various local churches. I have served on health panels at Brightside Baptist Church and Franklin and Marshall. In June 2020, I became one of the founding members of Diversifying Doulas Initiative to address the disparity in maternal mortality and morbidity in Black and brown pregnant people. I was the community benefits coordinator of a mobile COVID vaccine clinic in poor and minority neighborhoods in Lancaster in the spring and summer of 2021. I serve on the LGBTQ Health Equity Coalition. I am also a member of a task force that addresses sexual abuse and assault in the Plain community. My private medical practice, Wise Woman Healing, is located in the city on South Lime Street. Please consider me for the opening on Lancaster City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilors.
Mr. President?
Councilor Craig, then Councilor Baker.
Thank you. What are a few of your main concerns for Lancaster City?
I would say my biggest concern is the lack of a public health department. I think that a county this size is in desperate need of one. We saw with the pandemic how there were not coordinated efforts. Public health departments also provide health care for the indigent. Planned Parenthood here in Lancaster has closed. Public health departments also provide women's health care, contraceptive counseling, and sexual transmitted disease testing for both men and women.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for being with us this evening. In what ways do you believe that members of City Council have the greatest impact on city residents?
I think this particular City Council has made itself accessible to the needs of the community. I think there have been many excellent decisions from this council regarding homelessness and affordable housing. And I think that are 2 other very serious issues in the county. The unhomed in this city have been helped immensely by this council, and I hope that continues, because that is not just their public problem and their health problem, it is the community's health problem. We need to access some mental health services. It is very hard in this county for anyone to get a mental health counseling appointment because of the lack of access, and the lack of practitioners.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mrs. Craddick, for your service in Haiti, for all the work that you do for my brothers down there, because I'm from Haiti. I was born there, so thank you so much. And the question that I have for you this evening is, what interests you most about this position?
I feel like that I can bring something different to council. I feel like that I am very involved in the community and that I have a pulse on what is going on in this community and the needs of the community. I know people in Lancaster. I walk all the time. I walk in all the neighborhoods. I talk to everybody. And I feel like that I could represent the city in an effective way.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. President. Over the last couple of years, has there been a decision that this council has made that you may feel you would have decided differently or we could have done better?
That's a good question. Honestly, I don't. I mean, I can't think of any. Up until this past spring, I was a solo practitioner in a very busy midwifery practice, and I tried to keep up with city council as much as possible, but I will say I wasn't always up to date. I do read the Lancaster newspaper, and I try to see, but I have lived in many cities and rural areas and states, and I have been the most impressed with this council than any other city government that I've ever encountered. And I would love to be a part of that.
Other members of council?
Mr. President,
Please.
at this time, Mrs. Craddick, the person filling this position would become the chair of the Public Works Committee.
Mhm.
How do you feel your skills and background would serve you in that position?
I have a keen interest in clean water, clean energy. I feel that in this city, we need to plant more trees for clean air. We need to do something about the discarding of plastics into our water system. All of these affect the health of the community.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. President, just one more question. With your background in healthcare, is there anything that on day one, if you could, take a step in as a city councilor in the healthcare arena? I know public health department's kind of a big undertaking, but is there something that you would want to execute right away?
I think I could be a spokesperson for the healthcare community. I have a lot of connections with the healthcare community, and I would be interested in bringing their views of what the needs of the city are to council.
Are there any other questions from members of council? Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us to represent yourself, and we will be sure to be in touch with next steps. You'll get an email. I think my clerk is downstairs holding the door open, but you'll get an email from us just the same on the subject of next steps. It's been a pleasure. Do you have any closing words?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity to apply for this position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joey Dastra. Oh, I'm off. Joseph Dastra. Begin with your name and address, please.
My name is Joey Dastra. I live at 113 North Plum Street.
Thank you very much. Are you 18 years of age or older?
Yes, sir.
Have you been a resident of the city of Lancaster for at least 1 year prior to today?
Yes, sir.
And do you hold any office which would preclude you from taking a seat on city council?
Nope.
All right, you have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
So, as I said, my name is Joey Dastra. I am a lifelong Lancaster resident, which for me is 22 years. My interest in becoming a council member and filling this vacancy is kind of a carryover from my interest in running for council in 2021. There are a lot of reasons that I decided to run for council, but it really boils down to I am concerned about where we are heading. That doesn't mean that we're heading for catastrophe. It means that there is a better path forward. I am concerned about things like the environment. I am concerned about things like trust in institutions of the government, of our healthcare system, of our education system. I don't have a lot of life experience. Again, I'm 22 years old. But having grown up in Lancaster City, I do understand that there are people really struggling. And it's not always the people that, we visibly can see are struggling. Some of the families and some of the communities here in Lancaster might look fine on the outside, but the things that are going on at home are just not right. We have kids that are going without meals. The only meal they might get is something like a school lunch. We have kids that live in a single parent household, and obviously that mother or father is trying their best, but sometimes it's really just not enough. We have family, but we have adults out here who are trying to better themselves. They've made mistakes in their life. They've been to the county prison, and they're trying to turn it around. They're trying to look out for themselves. They're trying to look out for their family. They're trying to look out for their community, but they feel like they're stuck. They're trapped. They're in this constant loop. There's no way out. And so again, my interest in being part of council, being a part of city government comes from this belief that we have a responsibility to make communities and people whole. Not perfect, but whole. We have a responsibility to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to deliver for them. Obviously, there are limitations to what we can do as a government, as a community, both legally and fiscally. But if we're not out there fighting, if we're not bringing some heat, what's the point? What really is the point? Again, limited lifelong experiences, but grew up here in Lancaster, went to the school district of Lancaster and got the best education I believe you can get in the whole world. And I've been a very big part of the local music scene, community activism, and as of recent, obviously politics. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dastra. Members of council.
If I may, Council President?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Dastra, and also thank you for running as well. I know it's not always the easiest thing to do, so I really appreciate you stepping up to that challenge. As far as you mentioned a number of challenges that the city and county faces. What are some examples of solutions that you feel that city council could take on to address some of those challenges?
So, something like waste management. I'm actually part of the Lancaster Compost Co-op, and we have a bin set up at Musser Park. And it might be a small thing, but I believe me and about 90 other households in that area, we go and we take our food waste to the compost bin so it doesn't end up in a landfill. It doesn't end up in our water system, and we create useful soil that people can then go and use to grow food or plants or whatnot. So I would like to see movement in that area, and I know that our recycling and solid waste department, or not department, but the business has expressed interest in that. I believe that Lancaster needs to work with other municipalities to address some of our problems, because sadly, at times there is friction with the county government and we aren't getting the proper resources that we need. And so if we have to work with the other municipalities around us to get those things done, that's our responsibility. We can't just not do it.
Thank you.
Council President? Mr. Dastra, thank you so much for being here this evening. Could you describe your neighborhood and what you think the biggest concerns or priorities of your neighbors are?
Well, my neighborhood, I live, again, right by Musser Park. There are quite a lot of folks who are well off, or at least seemingly well off, and there are also quite a lot of folks who are struggling. So there's a bit of a dichotomy in the makeup of the neighborhood. Normally, when I'm talking to neighbors on the street in passing, the biggest complaint that everyone brings up immediately is something like traffic or parking. I think that's something that all of us kind of deal with. But on top of that, it's things like there might be public nuisances that aren't being properly addressed. And when I say properly addressed, I don't mean law enforcement. I mean other community groups or other advocates going and helping just, helping find compromises, helping prevent those sorts of situations from occurring in the first place. There's also problems with, I live right by the Turkey Hill. The Turkey Hill is only open nowadays between like 8 a.m. and midnight, when it used to be open from like 5 in the morning till X, Y, and Z. And that's because they don't have enough staff. And that's a problem that the entire city, the entire county, the entire country is having at the moment. So those are some of the issues that I would see on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
Council President.
Please.
Mr. Dastra, why would you be our best choice for this position?
Kind of like Mr. Kuhn said, I don't want to sit here, or stand here rather, and say that I'm the best choice. I believe that there are a lot of really qualified candidates, and we're all going to bring something different to the table. What I will say is I'm not interested in Joey Dastra's career on council, Joey Dastra's political career. I'm not interested in what happens to my political party. I'm not interested in my own business interests, because I don't have a business. I'm not interested in my nonprofit because I don't have the nonprofit. I believe I'd be a best choice because I'm no genius, but I comprehend things very well. I do my research, I read things, I ask for recommendations, I ask questions. I'll admit when I don't know what I'm talking about, and normally I won't talk about it if I don't know. And again, I'll go and find the answers that are asked of me. I believe I'm the best choice because I'm a young person. I'm invested in the community. I've been here all my life. I intend to be here for the rest of my life. And I don't think about that as a bad thing. That's actually a very beautiful thing, especially because I will most likely have the economic means to do so. I believe I'm the best choice because I ran for office and I talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of city residents. I knocked on thousands of doors in the city. While I don't have an intimate understanding of the problems that are going on in their life, I've watched people bare their souls in front of me because they just want to talk about what's really going on. I believe I'm the best choice because I care.
Thank you. I have one more question. What is your greatest love in Lancaster City?
Well, I will say, this is home. This is home. This is where I went to school, and I had some of the best opportunities of my life granted to me from teachers and from guidance counselors, the music program, the theater program, the athletic programs. This is where I fell in love I've been with my partner now going on 6 years. This is where most of my family is. This is home, and it's home for everyone, whether they've been here all their life or they just came here, because it is a welcoming place. My love for Lancaster is that Lancaster is stable and yet growing and changing, evolving.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Dastra, for being here tonight. And what do you believe is the most significant challenge for the city of Lancaster today?
I don't want to be pessimistic, but my entire life, I feel like we've been living through crisis after crisis after crisis. And that's not a Lancaster thing, that's not a Pennsylvania thing, that's not even an America thing, that seems to be the world. And what I'm concerned about is that as a government on just about every level, it seems like we are not prepared fiscally or legislatively or with the political will to handle those crises properly. We have an environmental crisis, a truly impending environmental crisis that is going to threaten everyone's quality of life unless you are super rich that you can just insulate yourself from the world. There is no escaping that for everyone. There is no escaping that. And it's honestly too late to stop that. It's coming. Whether we like it or not, it's coming. So what are we going to do to prepare for it? Because we can. It's going to be hard. People are going to be challenged. Things are going to be difficult. But it's best to prepare now for environmental crises, economic crises, and the sort, than it is to have them come up and start panicking. We could have prepared for the pandemic. It still would have been a crisis, but we could have prepared for it better, and yet we failed to. And that's not a Lancaster city government thing, that's everything, but we can do stuff to prepare, truly.
And how do you think being in council can help you, can help us be prepared for these situations, for these challenges?
Like I said, not every level of government or institution is going to cooperate with us, and that's why we need to find partners where we can. There are people all across the city, there are people all across the county, there are people all across the nation who think along the same lines that the majority of us, if not all of us in this room, do. And so we got to bring people to the table. And, you know, if we've learned anything, the table, because of the pandemic, isn't always in person, it is virtually. This is the new world we live in. But we have to bring new people, new ideas to the table and debate them, discuss them, be willing to compromise where we need to. And I feel like as counselor, it'll be my responsibility to do that and my interest to do that. As counselor, I'm not going to bear the weight of that responsibility solely. You guys are going to be sharing it with me. Not only are you guys going to be sharing it with me, everyone else out here is going to be sharing it with me. Everyone at home is going to be sharing it with me. And so we need to bring people to the table.
And what do you believe is the value of diversity in our city?
Diversity brings strength. Diversity brings sustainability. You know, diversity in just about everything strengthens it. Diversity in agriculture makes your crops grow stronger, bear more fruit. Diversity in your economy makes sure that when something happens that, you know, it's economic crisis, not everything fails. We take a hit, but we recover. Diversity in people is diversity in ideas, culture, in the cuisine, in the music, in the fashion, in the arts, language. You know, my partner is Puerto Rican. I can't speak Spanish, but slowly but surely I'm learning. You know, I spent time with them over the weekend with their family from Puerto Rico when we played dominoes. I didn't know what they were talking about. They were probably, sometimes they were making fun of me, but guess what? That was an experience that changed me for my life. Now, I've been talking to my partner's mother and my partner and their family about, yo, when are we gonna sit down and have some beers and play dominoes again? Diversity makes us all stronger.
Thank you.
Other members of council? Okay. Mr. Dastra, thank you so much for taking the time to come talk to us. You're certainly charming up there, and we will, we'll follow up with next steps. While you are at the podium, do you have any closing words?
These sorts of discussions are the kind, and the issues we're discussing are the kinds of things that keep me awake at night, in good ways and in bad ways, as I'm sure it does for you guys too. And so, like everyone else has said, whether I'm a counselor or not, these are the things I'm going to continue to think about. These are the things I'm going to continue to give input on, and I'll be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Elias. Hey, good evening. If you could start by giving us your name and address.
Yes, I live on East Lemon Street, and my name is Elizabeth Elias, and I live at East Lemon Street in Lancaster.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of questions. Are you over 18 years of age?
Yes,
Have you been a resident of the city of Lancaster for more than a year prior to today?
yes,
And do you hold any office which would preclude you from taking a seat on city council?
no.
Fantastic. You have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
So first of all, I just wanted to thank you guys for allowing me to come and apply and be a part of the process. I appreciate that very much and just want to thank you all for that. And I just wanted to kind of just say the reason that I'm sure you're going to ask me more specifically, but just want to say that I'm looking forward to just being able to use all the skills and experience that I have and life experience and my career experience as a social worker and just who I am, my own culture, being that I'm Panamanian, and just using everything that I have to help this city. And that is the reason that I am here tonight.
Thank you. Councilors?
Mr. President,
Please.
thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Elias, for being here tonight. And what interests you most about this position?
What interests me is that I really feel that it's kind of an extension of what I'm already doing in social services. So I feel that I can use my experience with working with the people in the community who are struggling with a lot of the things that I deal with on a daily basis, with mental health issues, addictions, homelessness, just dealing with things that I'm already kind of have an experience with. And so I'm hoping that you would be able to use that. And that's, I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay. Why do you believe you would be the best choice for this appointment?
So I believe that I would be a good choice because I really feel that the experience that I have, just coming from over 20 years of being in social services and being a licensed social worker, in this community specifically, I have got both my bachelor's and my master's here and had all of my experiences here. I've worked here, I live here, I know the people in this community. I feel that, taking all of that into consideration, my experiences working with people of color, working with diverse groups of people, and I really feel that this puts me in a really good position to be able to have to be able to help you guys here at City Council.
And Mrs. Elias, would you please describe your neighborhood and what do you think are the biggest concern or priorities of your neighbors?
probably, I would say in my neighborhood is homelessness. I see it every single day. There's a lot of people living in a limited amount in the homes. I see a lot of, overpopulation in the rentals that are in my block. So I would say that, and also drug addiction.
And how do you think that being on council would help you, or would give you the opportunity to help those people?
Why would being on council help me to help them?
Yes.
I think that because I would be learning a lot from the experience and being able to put things in place, help to you guys to be able to put things in place that would be able to help them. Obviously, things are not the way that things are going right now. There needs to be a change because people are still not being able to access services. Just even on the way over here, I'm passing people that are still sleeping on benches and still hungry, and I really feel that being in this position, I'll be able to help them more so than just working in the social services field.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Of course.
Mr. President?
Please.
Hello, Ms. Elias. Thank you for being here this evening. What do you believe is the most significant challenge for the city of Lancaster?
I think the homelessness problem is huge, housing problem. I think that being able to address those two would be a huge improvement. I also think there's a lot of issues with the laws, with the city housing and just putting things in place with the landlords and the tenants and things like that, I think are some huge issues that we need to, I know that you guys have been working in these areas and all these, this is not new, but I definitely think we need to continue in those areas.
Actually, Mr. President, I do have one question. What do you believe is going well in the city of Lancaster, and what would you like city council or the city to continue doing to ensure that that continues to go well?
I love that you guys are very concerned with people of color and equity. I think that's awesome, and I have to say that I like that. That's one of the things that you guys have been consistently doing well, and I think that it should continue. As a person of color myself, I would love to see that continue.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from members of council? Okay, well, that was relatively brief, but no less delightful for it. Ms. Elias, we will be following up with next steps. Thank you for taking the time to come and represent yourself to council as a part of this interview process. While you're standing at the podium, do you have any closing words?
Just want to say thank you all to you guys again. I appreciate you guys taking the time to come and do this. I know this is extra time, and I appreciate it, and I wish you guys all well.
Yep. Thank you. Members of council, I think I have never said this. We are ahead of schedule. And Ms. Elizabeth Figueroa, reached out earlier to withdraw her name from consideration. We are, as I said, so we are ahead, and we have one fewer interview. And so I think we have a choice now to take, say, 5 to 10 minutes for a bio/leg stretch break, and then come back, or just to sort of charge forth. We find ourselves with a surplus of time, which never happens to us. So,
I don't believe our next applicant is here, so it might be best to take a brief.
oh yes, we are. Yeah, because we are clipping right along. Yeah, let's take 10 and come back and see where we are.
Okay.
That'll be 7:35 by my time.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
In case anybody needs it, you would have passed the restroom on your way into City Hall, into council chambers. It's just out the door to the left. Oh, that's Please begin with your name and address.
Hello, Olay, Manthong, 519 Spruce Street.
Great, thank you. Couple of questions. Are you over the age of 18?
Yes,
Have you been a resident of the city of Lancaster for a year or more prior to this date?
yes,
Do you hold any office which would preclude you from taking a seat on council?
no.
You have 3 minutes to make an opening statement.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the viewers at home for watching and staying informed. Thank you to the audience that's here this evening. Thank you to the media for being here tonight. Thank you to council members for this opportunity to share my experience. I've always considered Lancaster County as my first home, even though I was born in Laos. I graduated from Conestoga Valley High School and have been a full-time resident in our city with my wife Heidi since 2008. My hobbies are community engagement, mentoring, and maintaining my photography business. My strengths: building connections with strangers in a meaningful way, seeing opportunities with a different lens, and inspiring others to see that they have value and can contribute to our community. A good person for this open seat should be connected within all parts of our community. A listener with open ears and not judging someone based on their past encounters. This person should be able to offer different perspectives of opinion so to have continued dialogue with council members. I believe a council member is an important person in the community because they are the last hope for individuals who are looking for support. People come here to council chambers to plead for guidance and expect compassion. Protecting the public interest would be my honor.
Great, thank you. Councilors, please.
Council President.
Councilor Baker.
Mr. Manthong, thank you so much for coming here this evening. Why were you motivated to seek this position at this time?
Actually, you all inspired me to apply, and the community. Since I moved back to Lancaster in 2008, the community has been able to just support my passion of running a photography studio. So being on city council would be a form of, for me to give back to the community.
Other council questions? Councilor Diaz?
So we are very diverse in our community. And as an Asian American and your diversity in business as well, and possibly being the first Asian American to city council, can you tell me, with your background and your ethnicity, what is something that you can bring different to city council?
That's a great question. I would say there is a lack of engagement in the Asian community. And that's the first thing that I would be able to provide, is showing that the city is diverse and is willing to take that risk and that opportunity to promote an Asian American or someone that looks like me to a role that holds value within our community. So it would be a first step, honestly.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Council President, just to follow up with Councilor Diaz's question, why do you think there is a disconnect with communication in the Asian community?
That's a very good question. I would say the disconnect is lack of trust within our community and within, government in general. I think that's the first sign. You have individuals that are coming from other countries and resettling here, and they left those countries because there was a lack of trust in government. So, you have to recognize that that's the first barrier for somebody to connect with the city, is because they're coming from an environment that didn't provide trust. So, if you're wanting to fix something, you got to create a bond and you got to build genuine trust. And to have an individual like myself on council, that's the first step, is to build trust, because then you have somebody that looks like that person, and you can now connect with individuals that have already been connected with me in the past and currently connected with me. So you would be gaining a resource versus just a person.
Thank you. One last question, and that would be, what is your greatest love for Lancaster City?
I think I would say the resilience within our community. That's my biggest love. Individuals either started here or moved here because of the fact that they've seen resilience within business owners, families, entrepreneurs, individuals that are graduating from the schools within our, walking distance from downtown. They see that people are wanting to stay because they see the growth and the ability of the success that Lancastrians have shown. Resilience, because as gentrification happens, other businesses are staying, even though they've been pushed out of the locations that they've been in. So resilience is probably the thing that I love the most about Lancaster, because as an artist, we have to continually fight to stay engaged and show that we can own the block that we're on. So it's not just the city, it's just the people that are here that are showing that, they can make it, even if, the community might not want them here.
Thank you.
Mr. President? As a local business owner, what are some opportunities that you see the city can take to engage more with local businesses or help improve the local business environment?
I would say put the same amount of effort that you put in bringing larger companies within Lancaster City. I mean, that engagement that, we have great organizations, name dropping City Alliance, they make the effort to draw larger companies to move here. We have Cargus that used to be right outside, of Lancaster City. Now they're a part of 101 Queen. We're engaging larger companies, but we're not doing an engagement with mom and pops and, solopreneurs. We got to put the same effort when we're trying to engage larger companies with smaller businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Olay, for being here. And in what ways do you believe city council members have the greatest impact on residents?
Can you repeat that question?
Yes. In what ways do you believe city council members have the greatest impact on residents?
No, that's a good question. We play the largest impact in residents, to be honest with you. People are coming here when it's the last resort. If you rewatch your council meetings and you count the number of people that come here to ask for support, that shows how important your role is as a city council member. So we have to elect the right person that has that compassion to resolve those issues. We can't allow our citizens to go home still being frustrated with the issues that were brought up, on why they came here. So I do believe that it's a very important role, and that, we need to continue to make sure that we have that open door policy, but at the same time, it can't just be that one-time engagement in council room.
And at this time, the person filling this position would become the chair of the Public Works Committee. How do you feel your skills and background would serve you in that position?
Well, I would say I have zero experience in public works, but I do have the experience of connecting with individuals that would be key individuals within that position. So I don't have any form of not willing to learn that specific position and take on that role to make sure it's done properly.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Please.
Mr. Manthong, thank you. What do you believe is the most significant challenge facing the city of Lancaster?
It's a good question. I would say the city's deficit is the biggest challenge right now that people try to ignore. You know, on July 13th, the mayor and city council talked about a $1 million deficit, $5 million deficit. So we're gonna have to address that eventually, and it's gonna impact the entire community. And then you're gonna have a packed room when we talk about raising taxes. So if we don't address it now, or we don't start addressing it so that our community members know that it's coming, then we're gonna have individuals that are here talking about what you propose. So it's the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. As a business owner, you know, if I was in debt at $5 million, I probably wouldn't get a loan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. You pointed out in one of your answers that there's a lack of trust in the Asian community, and between people who come here to Lancaster. So, as a council member, I mean, if you are elected, what do you think that you can do in order to fix this issue?
I would first invite them to this event, you know, and having a personal invitation could guarantee that there's going to be a trust building. So, I mean, you think of the county celebrating, you know, Asian Heritage Month and taking that effort and moving that needle just a little bit more. I would say the city has to do the same thing and create some sort of bond and gathering to bring those individuals, you know, within council chambers. We have Asian-owned businesses that have been a part of our community for 30 plus years, and they haven't gotten any acknowledgement from council members. So I think that shows that there is a lack of trust because there's no engagement. So that's the first example.
Thank you.
Mayor President, you mentioned in reference to celebrating your, I think it was January 25th, is that correct?
The Asian Heritage in May.
Oh, it's in May.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from members of council?
Yes, I'd like to ask him one more question, Mr. President, if I may.
You have time, go for it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Olay, would you please describe your neighborhood and what do you think are the best concerns or priorities of your neighbors?
I would say my neighborhood's pretty diverse, but I would say there's a lack of communication within our neighbors. I know everybody, but I recognize that people don't talk to each other. I mean, I make the effort to make sure I knock on people's doors when, you know, street cleaning is going to come, make sure they don't get tickets. You know, we adopted our block, so we make sure that, you know, we pick up trash prior to trash pickup night. That way, you know, we're helping a little bit. But I do get a lot of support from my neighbors. I mean, just recently, I went over to Paul's house to get like a little wrench to try to fix my furnace, and it didn't work, so I had to call Paris Heating and Cooling. But everybody seems extremely nice, but at the same time, there is a lack of communication, even though every single neighbor that I've encountered has been nice.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Mr. Hong Van Thong, thank you very much for taking the time to come represent yourself here to council. We've certainly enjoyed this interaction. Thank you to council members. We'll be following up with next steps, of course. While you're at the podium, do you have any closing words?
Sure. Thanks for your time. I definitely feel I'll be the best addition for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we're just going to rock and roll right along. Colin Hindley. Good evening.
Good evening.
Please begin with your name and your address.
Colin Hindley, 317 North Mulberry Street.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. Are you 18 years of age or older?
Yes.
Have you been a resident of the city of Lancaster for a year or more prior to this meeting?
Yes.
And do you hold any office which would preclude you from taking a seat on this council?
I do not.
All right, you have 3 minutes for an opening statement.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'd like to use this time to tell you a little bit about myself and give you the opportunity to get to know me. My name is Colin Hindley. I was born and raised in Lancaster County. I'm the third son of 4 boys. I spent most of my life living in Lancaster, with the exception of about 15 years I spent in various large and small cities throughout the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic during my education and medical training. I moved back to Lancaster 7.5 years ago in 2014 and have lived in Lancaster City since then. I'm an orthopedic trauma surgeon with Orthopedic Associates of Lancaster. I work primarily at Lancaster General Hospital, where I also serve as the director of orthopedic trauma. There, I treat complex injuries related to automobile accidents, motorcycle accidents, farming injuries, and other forms of trauma. In addition to my biomedical background, I was a double major in college with a degree in economics. I spent a year before medical school working for a consulting firm doing cost estimating and economic analysis for the U.S. Air Force and before pursuing my career in medicine. Since my return to Lancaster, I've been involved in the community in multiple levels. As an orthopedic trauma surgeon, I both treat members of our community in their moments of greatest need, as well as involved in outreach communities for outreach programs for injury prevention. The job has given me the privilege to meet and help people from all walks of life. In addition, I'm a clinical instructor involved in teaching and education for medical students, residents, nurses, and advanced practitioners. I have also been involved in medical missions to Haiti to treat underserved populations there. I joined Lancaster City Democratic Committee in 2018, representing the 9th Ward 1st Precinct. This experience has helped me increase my awareness of issues that face all different parts of the city. I also serve on boards for Lancaster Public Library and the Lancaster Assembly. Finally, I volunteer at Water Street Rescue Mission, which is a very rewarding experience. I love Lancaster, and I'm very passionate about its continued growth and success as a city. I think some of the most important issues for the city are affordable housing, the environment, city finance, economic growth, education, strengthening neighborhoods, and transportation. I'm very excited about the prospect of serving Lancaster City Council, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Councilors,
Council President,
please.
Mr. Hindley, thank you for being here this evening. In what ways do you believe that a city council member has the greatest impact on residents?
I think city council member has the greatest impact on residents by being accessible, being an open ear to hear the complaints, concerns, and issues of our fellow citizens, and then be able to represent those issues to the greater city.
Thank you.
Council President.
Please.
If chosen, what unique perspective would you bring to council?
I think both my medical background and economics background would be valuable assets for city council, as well as the fact that I've lived in a lot of other places and seen what's worked and hasn't worked in other cities, both larger and smaller than Lancaster. So I think that has a new perspective that can help steer Lancaster in the future.
Thank you.
Mr.
Councilor Colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Hindley, for being here. And what do you think is the value of diversity in our city?
I'm sorry, say that again?
What do you think is the value of diversity in our city?
I think it's extremely valuable. I think Lancaster is blessed being a very diverse city. I think that's one of its strongest components. I think that's something that we should celebrate, encourage. Lancaster County is known internationally as a home to refugees. It's been, featured on the BBC. I think encouraging further diversity just helps strengthen the community, adds more cultural perspective, greater opportunities for, just growth as a city.
And why do you believe you would be the best choice for this appointment?
Like I said before, I think I offer some unique perspectives from a medical background, from an economics background. I've spent time living in Lancaster City and elsewhere and can bring that perspective as well.
And why were you motivated to seek this position?
I've always been interested in Lancaster City. Like I said, I've been very passionate about, Lancaster City's growth. Very proud of Lancaster, and I wanted to help out Lancaster and serve in any way I can.
Thank you.
Mr. President. As a board member of the Lancaster Public Library and the Water Street Rescue Mission, what drove you to serve on those boards, and what makes you passionate about those organizations?
I think the Lancaster Public Library is a great example of a resource that's available to the community, that's free to the community, that serves people from all walks of life, provides education, provides opportunity. So to me, that was a very great opportunity. I was very flattered to be asked to be part of that. In terms of my volunteer at the Water Street Rescue Mission, I think that's just something, volunteerism is something we all should be involved in. It's a way of, reaching out and touching base with the community and helping people that are less fortunate. And that's, part of, the mantra of the medical field. And I like to live that also in my personal life.
Thank you.
Other questions from members of council?
Yes, Mr. President, one last question.
Go for it.
I would like to ask Mr. Hindley is how would you seek feedback from residents on proposed legislation?
I'm sorry.
How would you seek feedback from residents on proposed legislation?
Absolutely. I think, having an open door, listening to people in your neighborhood, throughout the community about, what their concerns are. I think I'm somebody that likes to hear, both constructive feedback, both positive and negative. And when people in the community tell you, what their concerns are, I think those need to be taken to heart, and you can use those to build and develop, what's best for the whole community.
Thank you.
Councilors, any other questions for Mr. Hindley this evening? Okay. Sir, thank you very much for taking the time to come and represent yourself to us. It's been lovely. You're great up there, and we will follow up with next steps. So expect an email.
Okay.
Do you have any closing words while you're at the podium?
No, again, thank you very much for your time and consideration. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hindley.
Thank you.
Yep.
I am again completely blown away that we are ahead of schedule, but I'm going to go ahead and bring us to our last interview for the night. Marquis Lupton. Please begin with your name and address.
Yes, Marquis Lupton, 860 Hilton Drive, Lancaster, PA, 17603.
Thank you, Mr. Lupton. Are you over 18 years of age?
Yes, I am.
Have you been a resident of the city of Lancaster for a year or more prior to this meeting?
Yes, I have.
And do you hold any office which would preclude you from taking a seat on council?
Not at the moment.
All right. In that case, you have 3 minutes to make an opening statement.
All right, well, first and foremost, just want to thank you all for this wonderful opportunity to be able to speak to you all today. Not going to hold you too much, but I feel as though that this opportunity is actually a blessing. I really considered running the last 2 times, but the growth of my business kind of hindered that, and now feel as though that it's the right time. And honestly, talking to my wife at the beginning of the year, it was like, man, I really wish that I would have ran last time with the group that I ran with the first time that I ran. And it felt like a missed opportunity. So when I saw this, it was like, let me meditate on it a little bit and think about the things. And I mean, I got great feedback from community members, from myself, from my wife. So I'm just ecstatic to be here. Again, it feels like I missed out on an opportunity, and opportunity doesn't knock 2 times. So I really feel as though this is the second knock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lupton. Councilors,
Council President.
please.
Mr. Lupton, thank you so much for being here this evening. What do you believe is the most significant challenge facing the city of Lancaster?
One of the most significant challenges, I would say, is access to opportunities. One thing that was kind of a pain point for myself moving back here 6 years ago was finding a job that matched the salary of the job that I had in Philadelphia. And then even furthermore, when I started to think about the people that didn't have the education that I had. I have a master's degree, and it was still difficult for me to find access to opportunities here. And it made me think about, all right, well, what about those people that don't have an advanced degree, that don't have a degree period, or that only carry a GED? So that's one of the things that really has pointed out to me is the access to opportunity. Just to point out something, when I was working for Blue Cross in Philadelphia, there was a young Jamaican lady. She was 34 years old, moved here when she was 21, jumped from homeless shelter to homeless shelter, and working at Blue Cross, starting off in the phone room and then working her way up to making $65,000 a year. That access to opportunity, I would love to see that here, where you can start off in said phone room and then be able to matriculate up. And I would, again, love to see that here. And not just, people being regulated to service jobs, not that there's anything wrong with that, but if they can have access to more and increase that opportunity.
Thank you. To follow up on that, in what ways do you believe that members of City Council would have the greatest impact to improve that for residents?
It would honestly have to start with a conversation. City Council can't just wave a magic wand and say, all right, well, here's this opportunity. Everybody has access to it. It's going to have to take some tough conversations with business owners, some conversations with some corporation leaders to make sure that those opportunities are offered to those people that really need them.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr.
Councilor Arroyo and then Councilor Calix.
Thank you, Mr. Lupton. As a question, what do you think the city is doing well, and what are some focus areas that you would like City Council and the city to continue doing well, and how would you contribute to that moving forward?
Well, I think that the city with equity does very well with its demonstration of diversity. It does very well. I mean, just look at our council. Some cities can actually be jealous of the representation that we have on our council. Other things I would say communication as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Mr. Lupton, for being here. And you said that you considered running many times. And why were you so motivated to seek this position? What interests you most about this position?
Well, City Council, it's like the first wave of government that people experience. It's the front-facing part of it, and it's where people can, quote unquote, touch you the most. I'm a people person. I'm a person that is always looking to help out. And I just don't want to be the rah-rah guy or anything like that to get people excited, and then there's no follow-up. The reason why I was attracted to city council was because, one, as a news reporter, I was always on the political beat. So in the different cities, I was always in council meetings and everything like that. So I saw how different cities and councils operate. So I use that as a bit of a launching point for my own campaign back in 2017.
And why do you believe you would be the best choice for this appointment?
The best choice? I mean, you guys had so many great people up here, and I don't want to say that that they're bad and I'm great or anything like that, but I would say that I'm one of the best choices because of my background. I'm born and raised here in Lancaster. I don't know how many other of our candidates that spoke tonight have worked on campaigns, but I worked on many campaigns from back in my time in Philadelphia, and also I'm a lifelong resident, and I have a heart for the people. I see well. I have a heart for the people. I'll leave it at that.
And would you please describe your neighborhood and what do you think are the biggest concerns or priorities of your neighbors?
Oh my gosh. What happened today? ICE was on our block. And that's really the biggest issue is ICE and being harassed on our block. We communicate with each other. We take care of each other. And when I saw them on the block, one of the first things I did was call my neighbor. And my neighbor called the neighbor next door. I called the neighbor across the street, just so that, you know, it's a community thing. Make sure that people have their antennas up because we don't know why they were there. We can assume, but it's been about the second or third time in a matter of, I believe, like 4 months that they've been there. So it's concerning.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go. I have but one question. What is your greatest love for Lancaster City?
Oh man, my greatest love. The people, the food, the cuisine, and ultimately the evolution of Lancaster. You know, when I think about Lancaster back in the 90s versus now, I mean, it's like day and night. And I can take pride in that. It's kind of cool now to be from Lancaster. You know, you can hang your hat on being from Lancaster, being from Lanc. You know, so that's what I really love about this place, the pride. You know, people that come from McCaskey, like you feel and you hear that pride. There's still people that wear their McCaskey Letterman's jacket, and they're my age. You know, so that just shows the pride that is here in this city, and how they just hold on to that pride, whether they're here, whether they're abroad, or whether they're in another city like a Philadelphia. Because when I was in Philadelphia, I had friends from Lancaster, and we still hung tough in Philly representing Lancaster. So it's the people. You know, we wear Lancaster proud on our sleeve, and you know we bleed Lancaster.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor President,
Please.
do you feel comfortable and safe? You said that there was issues in your in the area where you live. Can you elaborate what happened? Was there any shootings? Did somebody pass away there? What?
No, my block is very quiet, tight knit. We all talk to each other. We all support each other. Example, I was I was written in as a majority inspector of elections this past November. It's not like a bad, terrible neighborhood or anything like that. We have a lot of migrants in our neighborhood, and I'm guessing somebody said something. I don't know, but that ICE being there today shook me up, because that's not something that we see every day, and it's such a foreign experience. Like, you don't know how to really react besides, get people in the know.
And in reference to your schedule, I know you have a family and you have your business. I don't know if you have more than one business. What's your schedule like in being in the community and in city council? Is this something that you will be able to take, you'll be able to fulfill the schedule?
Oh, absolutely. I'm an entrepreneur. I make my own schedule. And this work comes before any kind of recreational work or anything like that. So it's all about prioritizing, prioritize what I need to do for the city, prioritize what I need to do for myself, prioritize what I need to do for my family. And I've been doing that ever since I ran back in 2017. This thing didn't stop. Even though I lost in 2017, the political awareness did not stop. The community involvement did not stop. So my schedule, I've altered it and took things out, added some things in so that I can remain active.
And one more question. In reference to public works, like, for example, all the stormwater project that has been happening in the city, can you give me an idea of how much you know about the EPA mandates that obviously Pennsylvania Commonwealth needs to address everywhere in the state?
Well, I will be transparent. I'm not too savvy on that, but one of the first things that I would do, if appointed, I would sit down and speak with Xavier. I would ask him, what are the things I need to know about public works? Is there any work that you have not completed that I can continue? I'm going to pick up where he left off and not come in with my own agenda or anything like that. After speaking with him, I would speak with Mr. Campbell as well, just to know his expectations, to know that we have this open line of communication, so that he can tell me what he needs me to do, and then we can jumpstart our relationship from there.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Lupton from council? Okay. Mr. Lupton, thank you so much for taking the time to come and represent yourself to council here tonight. It's been a pleasure to have you. We will follow up with details, so expect an email. And while you're at the podium, do you have any closing words?
Not too much. Like I said, I'm not going to hold you too long. Just want to thank you again for this opportunity, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Again, thank you to all of the applicants who have chosen to come and represent themselves before council this evening. As many of you have already known, it is not easy to put yourself forward for something like this, and you're exposing yourself to a lot of public scrutiny with the hope of better serving your community. We will be interviewing our next set of applicants on Tuesday, February 1st at 6 p.m. Right here. Barring anything else, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.